Hello, I'm Sally Williams and welcome to the QFF Business Hour, where we discuss farm business issues. You can join us on the last Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. to engage with industry and professional business advisors to assist you in building your strategic management capacity to prepare for and manage business and climate risks, as well as improve economic, environmental and social resilience. I wish to begin today's episode by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. In this episode, we will investigate the value of a written business plan, or rather a plan for your business, to help you identify, assess and manage business risks and how to address them. We'll also explore how a sound business plan may assist you in growing or improving your business, form new partnerships or pathways for the next generation to take over the business, and aid you in applying for drought assistance and loans. Very important. I'd now like to welcome today's panellists. We have Kerry Battersby, Project Manager, Queensland Farmers Federation; Jody Knowlton, Partner, Business Services BDO; Marina Skinner, Business Consultant, Generational Harmony; and Lloyd Russell, Director, TCB Solutions. Before I bring them in, I'm going to run through their bios so you have a little bit of a background on our four panellists today. Kerry Battersby is the Project Manager at Queensland Farmers Federation for the Farm Business Resilience Program. Kerry specialises in recovery, resilience and business continuity for farmers when confronted by drought and natural disasters, and has worked across projects for the production nursery industry and managing QFF response to drought and the recent flood events in Queensland. Jody Knowlton, Partner, Business Services at BDO. Jody is a specialist in business advisory, strategy, business plans, business reviews and action plans with more than 20 years experience. Jody has assisted agribusiness, including large-scale North Queensland cattle farming operations, multi-owner horticultural farming business, broiler farm businesses and a commercial greenhouse operation as well. Marina Skinner, a family business consultant at Generational Harmony, has more than 20 years experience as well in family business. Marina provides a strategic perspective with a whole of business approach for clients, and she's worked across multiple industry sectors for family business clients within Australia and also internationally. And finally, Lloyd Russell, Director, TCB Solutions. Lloyd is a specialist in strategic and governance consulting, specialising in family business, continuity planning, corporate governance and risk management for family farm enterprises. And Lloyd has worked with Nursery and Garden Industry Queensland on recovery and business continuity plans following the Cyclone Marcia and Cyclone Debbie events. So that was quite an introduction to our wonderful panel. Welcome to you all. It's really great to have you all together, and I know this is going to be a very full hour. We're going to be sharing a lot of information from all of you, and that's the reason why we've got you here. We've got a broad skill set here, so we're definitely going to be covering the importance of a business plan. So I thought I'd start with the first, before we go into the questions, I'll start with Kerry, because I know, Kerry, you really wanted to run us through the QFF Business Farm Resilience Program.
Thanks very much, Sally, and it's great to see everyone here on screen and to have everyone viewing today. Look, the Farm Business Resilience Program generally is designed to improve a farmer's ability to identify priority risks and essentially update your business plan. The program itself is very practical. Just think about your own business plan. All too often we have plans in our heads, or the business plan we gave to the bank 10 years ago is still in the bottom desk drawer. Now that's fine, but I think we'd all agree that with all the events of the past 2 years of business interruption and supply chain issues, and more now with this current weather season, it's really highlighted the need for farmers to know their business risks and to know what their tolerance is for various negative situations like a flood or a cyclone. So what we're doing at QFF is encouraging farmers to have a written plan and to know what's required to implement the actions when that time arrives. All too often we panic at the time, and if we've got a prepared written business plan with an action plan associated with it, it makes the job simpler at the time when we're facing disruption, interruption, or supply chain chaos. Now, the Farm Business Resilience Program is jointly funded through the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund and the Queensland Government's Drought and Climate Adaptation Program. So you heard the word drought in there. So while drought risk is important to recognise, and there's a program for drought assistance available that we'll discuss today, we can use this program for a holistic review of your entire business strategy. So for instance, your big risk might be flood or cyclone from a natural hazard point of view, or it might be labour shortage that you've encountered in the last couple of years. It could be water access issues or a disruption to the supply chain that is entirely outside of your control. Let's have a look at those risks. So the basic point is, in the Farm Business Resilience Program, we'll help farmers improve and update their whole of business plan. The process that farmers can start with is a self-assessment tool that looks at your priority risks and any gaps, and then working with professional advisors like those here today with us and your industry groups, we can customise a plan that's suitable for your business. So each farming group, such as QFF and its members, is working to deliver the Farm Business Resilience Program. So if you're a cotton producer, a nursery owner, a turf farmer, pork producer, chicken, meat or egg producer, this program through QFF is for you. You don't have to be a member of your industry association. It's open to all. So Sally, the purpose of today is really to look at the basics and to help answer the question, why bother writing a business plan? Back to you, Sally. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and such a great question. But before we go to that, I'd love to hear from Jodie Knowlton, BDO, just a little bit about a brief background, Jodie, on your work and your involvement with the program.
Thanks, Sally. It's great to be here and be part of the program. So a bit about my background. So I grew up on a property in southwest Queensland, which has driven my passion in the food agri space. And that's been, you know, what's driven what I'm doing over the last 20 years. And now as a partner at BDO, you've got the privilege to be able to help QFF and the farmers as part of this Drought Resilience Fund to be able to help design the business plan guide. And we're working with the QFF in relation to the guide for the risks and so forth that's associated to the different industry associations that Kerry had spoken about before. We're also available to help with developing any of those business plans at the next stage. But happy to be here and happy to try and help and give some insights to the farmers as part of what we're doing today and contribute where we can.
Great. Thanks so much, Jodie. And also with 20 years experience, Marina, can we hear from you, a little background and your involvement with the program as well?
Thank you, Sally. Yes, delighted to be here, and what a great program that's being offered, and I really hope that there's huge take up with it. I know the amount of work that's been put in behind the scenes, and I guess one of the biggest challenges I see is around family businesses in particular, because that's my specialty where I like to work, either not writing a plan or writing it and sticking it in the bottom drawer and not sharing it with anyone. But I know we'll get to those questions. So a little bit about my background. I do come from a family business, and whilst I'll say that, you know, there's a history in the family going back many generations of being on the land. I'm the first generation not on the land, but have worked in my father's family business in manufacturing. And it's certainly given me the basics and principles to step forward and understand the value of having a good business plan and strategy as how to move forward. Flip side to that was that if I'd known about professional organisations like Family Business Australia that actually have advisors skilled and trained in the dynamics of family business, my story might have been a little bit different, but now I'm on the consulting side because I really understand the challenges that family businesses have and farming families, and it's a passion of mine to make sure that they have a better story, a different story, and they actually have the opportunity to make decisions that create continuity and a legacy. So that's a little bit about my background. I certainly have qualifications. I've chosen to focus solely and specifically around family business, very much that holistic approach, because you can't just look at one part, you've got to look at the whole business. But then focusing on the people dynamics, because we find that's often the biggest thing that lets things down, is they haven't shared or communicated effectively what that vision is for the future and where they're going to take things. And so people are, don't know how they fit into that picture. So it's really about pulling it all together, making a difference, helping people move forward. I actually majored in family business when I did my studies a number of years ago, and I work with a lot of family businesses, helping them with succession planning, strategic planning, and just looking at how the family dynamics work and how they can put a little bit of structure and formality around it. It doesn't have to be corporatized, but certainly just bringing a little bit more structure so that they can move forward together and build on the strength of being family in business.
And communication is key, isn't it, Marina?
It really is.
So is.
Ultimate.
Yeah, absolutely, with everything. Lloyd, we've saved the best for last. Can we hear from you now, Lloyd?
Thank you, Sally, and good afternoon to all the panellists. It's great to be here with you all, and good afternoon to all the listeners and property owners and that out there. Look, like most of the other panellists here and through the rest of the program, it's my involvement is as a specialist consultant, and my specific area is predominantly in the risk management and overall strategy area. Very dear to that and very close to that is the complexity of the supply chain that all of agriculture, all of primary production is facing at the moment. It's a very difficult area to manoeuvre, and as we become more of a global market and that sort of stuff, we're some people sort of think that there's no hope, but then there's also opportunities coming around in that, and that's the idea of the business plan. I've actually worked very closely with Kerry over the last 3 or 4 years, developing flood mitigation plans and preparedness for flood, preparedness for the droughts and the cyclones and that sort of stuff that people have faced. We've actually done a national project, or in the process of finalising a national project in that area, and with that comes in all of the risk management. And everyone here today is in food and fibre production, and of course biosecurity plays a very big part of that, because so much of I saw the list of attendees earlier on, and a lot of beef and a lot of cotton and that sort of stuff as well. But you've also got the horticulture and also the intensive livestock areas, and we're dealing in food and fibre products. So the consumer has a fair bit to say now, and the use of technology enables them to have quick access, but it also allows the producer to have quick access as well. So I think this is a fairly exciting program, purely for the reason that it's bringing together a lot of outside people that are giving their time and expertise for the benefit of the industry, and certainly applaud QFF for that. So looking forward to participating in the questions and then helping people put the plans together later on. So back to you, Sally, with that.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. Lovely. And we're looking forward to getting through all these questions, because we actually have quite a lot to get through today. So I think we'll move on to the first one, and that is, why is it good practice to have a written business plan? Jody, let's start with you.
Well, the benefit for farmers to have a business plan, when you're thinking, the written business plan is like, a lot of farmers have this content in their head. They think about it, that they know what they're doing, they know how they approach what they're going to do on a day-to-day basis. They do generally think about, what the season's going to be like, how that's going to play out, and so forth. But to actually spend the time and sit down and write it out and get it down on paper, the value that comes from that is different for each business. So if I'm talking to, if someone's listening to this and they're going, okay, what would be the value to me to that? It can be varied depending on what you're trying to achieve. And I guess that's the key point of it, is trying to get out, what are you trying to achieve within your business, and then communicating that to the stakeholders and making sure that all the components of that actually come together. So holistically working through, okay, what do we want? Like, what are our ideas? Where are we trying to get to? How are we going to get that actioned? And then working through the different components of how that affects the business as a whole. So how does that affect the operational procedure? How does that affect what we're trying to do? And having that documented down there means it's a really good communication tool. Internally within the business, you can share those ideas with everyone around you, but also share it with your stakeholders, being the banks and anyone else that's involved in the business as well. But the key value I find when I'm talking to people about trying to get this down on paper is then also the reflection on it. The ability to go, okay, yeah, I generally have these things floating in my head, but once I actually say it out loud, try and put some context around it, and then try and put a plan around how we're going to action that, it becomes a collective and it becomes something that everyone can work together towards. So there's so much to that question, but I'm conscious that we've got a lot to get through. So I'll let a few other people talk on that. But that's kind of my high level feel in relation to, why is it good practice to have this on paper? And
Lloyd, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think, having a written business plan, if it's in writing, generally speaking, it's actionable as well. People start to own things that are written down, and it creates a sense of common goals within the family or across the business if it's a multiple family business and that sort of stuff. But it also creates a focus. So if things get a little bit, etchy or sketchy sometimes, and we're not sure what we're doing things or whatever, we can always come back to that business plan and say, okay, this is what we went through and we agreed with, and you can use it as a focal point to do exactly what Jody said, to review things, to review your supply chain, to review your actual whole plan, to review your finances. You may have changed your risk profile by actioning some of these things and shifting it forward. So it's a really good anchor point, and it's a really good focal point to go back and review, but also, keep the relationships going as well with inside, internally in the business or whatever. And people are employing a lot more people now, whether it's a contractor or it's a full-time staff or casual staff, or in the case of horticulture, visa staff and all that. Having a written business plan allows you to manage your human resources a lot better as well. And I think it's so multifaceted as what Jody said, and I'm sure Marina's going to add some other dynamics in that as well. So,
would you like to add now, Marina?
Thank you, Lloyd. I'm sorry about those technical issues. It's always the way, isn't it? And look, I think it's just such an important tool for people to really focus on a point in time. It's like a snapshot of actually where we are, and taking time out to actually think about what's important and how that's viewed by all external stakeholders. But I'd like to come back to the internal stakeholders are really critical in this as well, and just communicating that message, pulling it together, the communication aspect of it, and how it can actually assist in moving forward. It's very much the whole picture process. So I hope I'm reinforcing some of the points that have been made and the way in which people can use this. It doesn't need to be complex, but it does need to have the detail in there that's required to actually help people move forward and forward together in alignment with a vision for what they can really achieve, what's possible.
Yeah, and I guess,
thank you, Sally.
Yeah, and a business plan, thank you all, also can help in setting better objectives and benchmarks, because I'm sure that's always moving. It's a moving feast, a business plan, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Jody, would you like to talk to this?
Yeah, so the business plan, once you've worked through the business plan, like something, there's a heap of different components to it, but the overall objectives of what you're trying to achieve then helps you set what your budgets are going forward in relation to that, and what kind of resources you need to be able to achieve that from a cash flow perspective, but then like Lloyd was saying, from a labour perspective, and what kind of infrastructure you need to be able to achieve what you're trying to get to. Marina will highlight more in relation to the family dynamics and what you might need to be able to achieve where you're trying to get to. And, you know, some of those can be small and some of them can be big. I guess a lot of the stuff we've been saying here is, you know, set these big strategies and all this kind of stuff. That's not necessarily the case from a family farming perspective. It can be that we just want to increase, you know, the area that we're farming. We just want to make sure that we're getting better yields. We're just trying to do these little things within there to be able to achieve a bigger output, being that we want to then have sustainability within the family to be able to pass this on to the next generation or do that. So that the business plan really helps set those objectives. I see in my day-to-day interactions with clients that, you know, there might be a change in legislation that you get instant asset write-offs. So therefore they're like, okay, we're going to buy a new tractor. But yet, how does that fit in with the business plan that we're trying to achieve? Is that really what we're trying to get to, or could those cash then be put into better irrigation to then build resilience within this kind of, in the environment that we're trying to get to? So once you've got a plan on paper, those objectives then help make those decision making push forward, and you can then, by having it written down, means that then you can refer back to it, and it's going to change. I think that's one of the big things when I talk to, and I didn't mention this before, was that when I'm speaking to a lot of farmers, trying to get this down on paper, the hardest thing is because we know the dynamic and the environment will change this, and that's okay. I think just because it's written down, it does give clear direction.
But it's not setting concrete, yeah?
It's not something that's a stagnant document that has to say, and the best business plans are the ones that change regularly. And as part of the communication that you have and reflection on those goals and those action plans that you have attached to it, you can then benchmark what you're trying to do against how you've achieved it, and then what the steps are that you're going to take going forward from that position of knowledge and understanding.
So you've got to really go back to it and review your business plan regularly.
Yes. Yeah, so that's where you get the benefit of it. You get benefit right up front by writing it down and getting it out of your head and getting it down on paper and working through each of the different components of it, because that's a reflection that Lloyd was mentioning before. But then the next step is actually then going back to it and going, how are we going with these goals? What are the actions that we're going to take out of it? Who's accountable for that? Where are we at? And has things changed? And in that communication around, has things changed in the dynamics in there, being that the market conditions has changed. So now, you know, demand for our product was here, but now it's dropped down to here. So what do we need to do? And how do we adjust for that within there?
Yeah, exactly. And Marina, you know, getting it out of your head, usually it's in one person's head, if it's not on paper.
That's quite right. We often see in farming families, particularly that the founder or the incumbent generation is the visionary. They're the ones with the picture of how it can all go. And if they haven't shared that, when you have a crisis hit or some sort of a challenge, no one's actually clear what their role is, what they need to do to actually move forward, how to help. And you can have everyone sort of running to one direction or all running in different directions, and it's not actually solving anything because they're not aware of what that vision is. There's no alignment, and yet the strength of a family pulling together and aligned to that vision and knowing what their role is, where they can contribute, is the beauty of what you know, having that written business plan and sharing it can actually do.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. So it's getting it out of the head, it's getting it written, but then it's actually communicating it so that everyone really knows what their role is in that.
Yeah, literally all on the same page. Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
And of course, when there's disaster about to happen or has happened, at least you've got it written down, then you can refer to it then too, because, you know, risk happens. And this is why I want to bring this next question into you, Lloyd. How can a business plan help identify competition, but the market and also potential risk?
Yeah, it's a fairly complex question if you sort of try and look at it from the macro level. with free trade agreements and tariffs and all that sort of stuff. And I think if again, it's as Jody and Marina and also Kerry has mentioned, that this is your business plan, and it needs to be tailored to your situation. If it's the market influences that impact on your particular business, and you can look at all of the, if you look at the beef industry and that sort of stuff now, it's probably as high as it's ever has been, and we're all probably waiting for it to see if it comes back off the boil and all that sort of stuff. However, a lot of people have come out of 6 and 7 years of drought, and so this is where these sorts of things, that it is very personal, or it's very business specific, that you can look at those sorts of things. What is the competition? You're your own competition in a lot of cases. It's competition from, if we look at the meat industry, it can be competition from, shifting from one red meat to another, or whatever. Is it the competition from the vegan diet and that sort of thing? So you can look at things at a macro, but also at a micro level, and with that, I think is looking at those risks. It's agriculture is a very risky business. You can look at your rainfall records from the last 100 years, and I suspect there's probably people in the audience that have been at the timing of that rain. You look at the rain in central Queensland at the moment. A lot of the mung bean and sorghum crops haven't come off yet. So it's then taking advantage of those things. The risks, and I do want to focus on the risk aspect a fair bit in my bits of the presentation here in the webinar today. And risks are over the horizon risks. They're normal part of your risk profile, but they're also part of your risk appetite. And we don't want to get those two things mixed up too much. It's your risk profile is the risks that you face in your geographical area, in the size of your business and what you're producing and all that sort of stuff. Your risk appetite is the risks that you're prepared to take. And to live with, and that sort of thing. So you may have the scale to manage risks differently to somebody else, or you've got the benefit of water storage or whatever. And as Jody alluded to there before, is in her segment just previous, is there may be a tax incentive or something that comes up from a regulatory perspective. But is that really the thing that can help, and I hate using the term drought proofing, but mitigating water, or water dependency inside your business and that sort of stuff. It may be that that you're better off looking at a new planter to manage your the thing, that the actual, you mightn't be an irrigator, but you still are using water coming out of the, you use the water that you stored into the ground, and things like that. So in this particular process, I know a lot of the consultants, we will use quite a wide risk process, and try to match that with your own area. And competition is a risk. Competition's also an opportunity. The market is a risk. The market is also an opportunity, and that sort of thing. So risks are not all bad. 85% of your risks are actually positive type risks. And you can say, right, well, if I put this in place, if we put this in place as an enterprise, we are mitigating that to take an advantage of that thing. So And I'm mindful of the time as well, so I'll finish my bit of that and hand it back to you, Sally.
Thanks, Lloyd. Kerry, I was noticing you nodding quite a few times. I know you've worked very much together with Lloyd. Did you want to add to that yourself?
Oh, look, I think it's so important. And the beauty of the Farm Business Resilience Program is that we are looking at a wide scope of risks. We're looking at everything from drought, climate, weather risks, but also, as the team here today have said, that we're looking at your risk appetite. We can work with producers to look at what are your production risks? What are your biosecurity risks? What are the market risks that you're facing? What financial challenges do you have? What opportunities come out of that? Looking at the farm business risks itself, workforce, reputation of both your own business, but also your industry. Are you vulnerable to any failings within industry reputation for whatever crop, or if you're a cattle producer? So it's looking at these risks, and that's the beauty of this program in particular. Now, Lloyd and I have worked quite closely on natural disaster risks, but we've seen over the years how a business interruption can just rock you to the core. It can be a cyclone that shuts you down from producing for 6 months or so. And at that point in time, you don't have income. You are not producing, you are not proactive in your business. So there's all of these interruptions that we can look at and these risks and assess them through this program as to, are they a low risk? Are they a medium risk? Or are they actually a critical risk that we need to really consider? So that's certainly how we're approaching this program and providing professional advice to individual producers. Thanks, Sally.
Again, why the business plan is just so key to be ready and prepared. No stone unturned if you can, to think it through. The next question here, how can a business plan help farmers identify gaps in their business strategy? Marina, can we hear from you?
I think it's really simple. The fact that people are taking the time out of their business to sit down and focus. This program offers the support of professional advisors to help them go through that plan. And so they've got someone else to bounce off. They've got someone guiding them. The template is brilliant. It's simple. It guides you through the questions, the key areas you need to be looking at, and to have someone there alongside you, helping you complete that, to really ask some tough questions and make you stop and think about it, is really, really helpful in then identifying those gaps. And as soon as you've done that, then you're in a position to start looking at, well, what sort of actions do we need to take to mitigate that risk? How do who's responsible for it, and what other alternatives are there? I'm a big believer in the scenario planning, the what if, and it just gets you thinking differently and looking at what are the other opportunities out there, because as Lloyd put it before, that all those challenges don't need to be a negative. They can really be, you can turn it around to a positive and a way forward, and think differently about your business, and you bring the people who are involved with you along for the journey. And I think that's a key thing as well, is really looking at where are we headed, where are we going, what's our North Star, so to speak, what direction will we take in the way in which we travel, and what's going to stop us from getting to where we want to go, and how we can achieve it. So it's a valuable tool for business. And I see too many farming families. I work with a lot of primary producers who just don't have a business plan, and then they wonder why they're confused about where they should be going and what they should be doing. So it's a great way to identify those risks and develop your strategy to move forward.
So you've certainly experienced with many of your clients, all of you, just the consequences of not having a plan. Very much so. How can a business plan benefit me, for example, my family, or the next generation who may take over the business? This is a great one. Where will we start with this? Jody?
So in relation to the family business side of things, the the benefit of having it is purely communication.
Yeah.
And I think everyone on this would say the same thing. I know Marina and Lloyd are strong believers on this as well. Is the key thing is communication. We all know that succession is a thing that families need to deal with, and
but also struggle with, I'd imagine.
Yes,
it's not always easy, is it?
And the key part of that's communication. So the business plan is actually an opportunity to start that conversation, maybe in a bit more of a subtle way. There's professional advice that can be provided through all of us here in relation to how to then do that in a really structured way if there's complexity within the family. But the benefit of the business plan is to actually start having a bit of direction in, okay, is someone going to potentially retire? And if so, when? What's the strategy that we're trying to do? Are we trying to set this business up to sell? And if that's actually communicated from the start, then that's it. But usually in the family business for the next generation, the idea is to try and pass it to the next generation. So, okay, that can be a headline point, and then we're action point in relation to, okay, that's something that we need to deal with in relation to what we can then do going forward to make that happen as part of the process. So it's a really good starting point. But if you're partway along the journey, then it's also the execution of it. And this is where we say the business plan is dynamic. It keeps changing over time. So in that sense, then you need to be able to adjust to it.
And Marina?
Yeah, I agree with what Jodie said. It's a starting point. It's opening up conversations that often aren't had, and it addresses concerns. You know, some people might expect that they are going to have to take over and don't really want to be on the farm. And so it's having open, transparent conversations. It's looking at whether the people coming through for the next generation have the capability and skill set to take it over and
are prepared for it.
Are prepared for it, yes. And once again, coming back to that scenario planning, we've identified some gaps. You know, what happens if, you know, someone drives the header into a power line and, you know, we've lost a key member in the family. How's that going to play out? And how's that going to look then to our external stakeholders? Does the bank still have confidence that the business can continue, or have they met the next generation and feel confident that they can actually take over and take it forward and grow the business and meet their commitments? So there are so many different aspects to look at that this business plan just helps identify, and it is really that starting point. It's about being prepared. I think that's a big thing about doing a business plan, is it helps us think about what do we need to do to be prepared to move forward, and particularly where family are involved. We often see that they're getting, you know, good advice from their accountant, from their lawyer. They think they're doing their succession planning because everyone says they can do it. And it's important to know that there are specialists within family business advising that really have done the training to help with that family dynamic. Because that often gets overlooked. They're difficult conversations, they're difficult things to address, but the majority of family businesses that fail not because of the professional advice they're getting around their finances, their structuring, their legal documents. It's around actually the family communicating effectively together. And, you know, they say it's the soft skills, but it's actually the hardest part of the work that is done with families. And yet there's such a formidable force when they come together and work together, and they have that clear alignment and goals of where they're heading as a family and know that vision. So the business plan is that starting point.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up and covering that, Marina, because it's such an important point, as you think, and probably not discussed enough, I would imagine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very much so. Now, I just wanted to move on to this question. It's a good one. Will a business plan help me attract or form new business or new partnerships, for example? Lloyd?
Yeah, look, it certainly can if that's the overall strategic direction that you want to go to, and that those attract and form new business relationships. You know, that could be you know, a deeper or different relationship with a financier. It could be, you know, pulling together external, you know, external professionals like your accountant and your solicitor and that sort of stuff to be more involved in the process, because I think it goes back up to sort of question 4, where we said, does it identify gaps? Yes, it does identify gaps and says, well, hang on, we've got this expertise inside our family and our cohort inside our business now, but we need other expertise to help us out. So yes, it does bring that in. It might, you may have a strategy of look, we've got a fair bit of critical mass and enough of our balance sheet sitting inside agriculture. We want to look at some sort of value adding or whatever, and you may join together with another group of families to invest in, it could be into a value adding side of a business, or it could be a grain hub or whatever. And there's lots of those examples running around Queensland and New South Wales on the border region now that you can go and have a look at. And so it does. You might even look at it saying, well, if I've actually got a very robust plan, I might be able to look at an investment to go deeper into the supply chain. So absolutely, it comes down to what Jodie and what Marina have talked about here before. Is it gets the conversation going, and I suppose to duck back to the other question as well, is how does it benefit me? Well, it can allow you to manage expectations inside the family, but it can also allow you to manage those expectations inside your supply chain or investment cohort. That links to your overall strategy, which this question alludes to, is can I look at diversification or whatever? So it certainly does. It also creates that benefit that it allows you to say, well, look, I'm working towards getting deeper into the supply chain, or I'm working towards that, and you can actually manage the timing, and you can manage the impatience, I suppose, of whatever it is. Exactly what Marina just said, that if somebody happens to have a major catastrophe and an accident, which happens, you are in a risky business in agriculture, and it then allows you to have a good relationship with your financier, so you don't have your I suppose your financial enabling restricted and all that sort of stuff. So the answer is yes, it does, and it's only limited by what your overall strategy is. So, and I'd be interested in Jodie's and Marina's input in that as well.
Yeah, so what you're saying there, Lloyd, 100% agree with. The key thing in relation to whether the business plan will help me attract or form new business partnerships will really depend on what you're trying to achieve. So it depends on what your strategy is and how you're trying to work through that. And if you identify any of those risks / opportunities within there, how you're looking to then action that going forward. Some of the examples in there is the whole paddock to plate, which has been happening, or direct to market access in relation to some of the supplies that happen around the place. That might be an opportunity. You see, there might be a risk going on with that in that market environment. So therefore, that's an opportunity to collaborate with other people within the industry to be able to deliver that product or produce in a different way than what's happened before, because you've stepped back and said, hey, I identified this, but then that's the opportunity within there. It might be that you want to diversify your income. So let's think about, can we do a solar farm, or can we do something like that? But let's collaborate and do it with a few different neighbours to then bring this together and have it as a bit of as an idea. Like, these are just a few things that can come out, but it's all customized compared to what are you trying to achieve? How does that work with the numbers? And can we actually financially make that work as well to tie that back into it? And then what's that next steps that we need to do? And if it doesn't fit within, what you're trying to achieve might be up here, but your financial capability to be able to deliver on it might be here. So what are those different options that we can try and identify to work through that, and then come up with a plan of attack for the next steps to get where you're trying to achieve? So that's, absolutely, it can.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you both. I just want to move on to the next question. Lloyd, you were saying it definitely is a risky business. Why is it so important to identify and assess risks such as drought, flood and climate, and the strategies and actions on how to address them?
Yeah, it's and look, I think agriculture or primary production is really well suited to this. You know, generally speaking, because they've actually got longevity of records now, and you know, there's nothing surer than a drought in agriculture. There's nothing surer than a flood. There's nothing surer than a frost. There's nothing surer than a cyclone. You know, they're natural phenomenons, and you know, and I think it's. We can get bogged down and try and get paralysis. We start getting paralysis by analysis in these things. The reality of it is they do happen, and so you say, well, okay, it's instead of saying, you know, well, what if? It's when something like this happens, how have I managed it in the past? How have my other colleagues inside different industries managed in the past, and what else can we do to look at managing it? And is it utilizing technology utilizing technology that we've got now that we just didn't have 10 or 15 years ago? I think therein lies the identification of these things and understand and looking at them from a risk perspective is you're not going to mitigate a drought. You're not going to mitigate completely a flood or a frost event or a high wind event or something like that. You know, you just can't control the nature, but how you respond is really, really, really important. And what have you got prepared? Kerry and I've said a lot of these, and I'd actually like to throw over to Kerry now, and through you, Sally, to look at some of the things that have come out.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks, Sally. Look, I think we see so often when we go through a flood event or indeed this last drought, farmers hurt. It's painful to go through it and they do not want to experience it again. So today we've been talking about turning risk into opportunity. And I think farmers, by their very nature, are glass half full people. They want to get the best outcome. They want to achieve the best that they can for their business, for themselves and their family, and for their clients and their suppliers. So if we're now looking at opportunity, let's look at the resources that you need to get through, for instance, the life cycle of a drought. And QFF's been working quite closely with the Department of Agriculture in terms of reforming how we perceive drought. The definition of drought is very contentious, but we've been working quite closely to really define the life cycle of a drought, and it creeps up on you and you don't know you're in drought until you're actually in there. It's unlike a flood, it's unlike a cyclone. So from an opportunistic point of view, how do we resource ourselves, whether that's through infrastructure, workforce, or having a financial piggy bank that can get us through the next drought, can get us through the next 6 months of no productive income after a flood. How do we identify those risks and how do we turn them into our advantage and our opportunities so we never hurt again?
And have that as part of your business plan.
Have that as part of your business plan. Have that as an action plan.
Yeah. So no stone left unturned. Fabulous. We need to keep moving on. Thank you both. That's wonderful, because we could talk about risk, for a long time, couldn't we? But I really would like to move on to the next one. How does a business plan tie in with applying for the drought assistant grants? Very important, and loans. Kerry?
So thanks, Sally. Look, there is, as I indicated, QFF and the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries here in Queensland has been working quite closely with industry groups and with the Queensland Rural and Industry Development Authority to put together a series of grants and loans as part of a reform process. So one criteria is you need a farm business resilience plan. That's a requirement of applying for any of the grants and loan products that are now available through QRider. So they've taken the life cycle of a drought and set up separate products which are available to primary producers, and they're looking at preparedness. They're looking at ready and recovery loans. So if you identified through your business plan, through your resilience plan, that you need to put in new infrastructure, whether it's a new dam, whether it's a new bore, it's new infrastructure. A QRider preparedness grant can help as a contribution towards that major infrastructure purchase. So we're very keen for producers to look at the QRider products that are on offer at the moment. And one of the criteria is to have a farm business resilience plan, which is where this comes in. So we're working quite closely together with QRider and with DAF to look at how to better your business and prepare it for the next drought, which, as Lloyd indicated, will come, to prepare you for whatever your priority risks are, and to make sure that you are well resourced, you can manage the downtime that impact may cause, and that you know that you've got support there. And one of the key messages out of the team at QRider is don't self-assess your capacity or your ability to take up a grant or a loan. Talk to QRider, talk to us. And that's why QFF is quite integrated into this process. We're here, we're available. There's Department of Agriculture is hosting webinars themselves, plus there's a roadshow of events happening in May 2022 around the state, which can help just answer questions. This is all about customizing a business plan so that you respond to whatever your priority risk is, and the products are there and the support is there for you.
Oh, it's just a wonderful resource, Kerry. It is fabulous. Thanks for talking us through that. And now I just want to come to, we've only got a few minutes left, actually about 7 minutes left. So I want to make sure we cover these last two questions. So I haven't got a business plan. What do I need to create a good one? That's the question. Can I start with Marina, because we haven't heard from you for a while. I'd love to hear from all of you on this.
Okay, look, I think a really good business plan is about understanding who you are and where you are in your business, looking at your business very strategically and all the elements of it, bringing that together. But what's your motivation for doing this? You know, why are you in business? Why do you do what you do? And have you shared that with the family? Where are you now and where would you actually like to be? Because without knowing that, it's a bit like going on a journey. You need to map it out and plan it, and looking at the bumps that might occur in the road on the way and planning for that as well. So I think it's really about setting those goals and putting together, mapping it all out so that you know where you're going and how you're going to get there and who's on the journey with you. That's really, really important. You don't need to do it alone. You know, QFF have organised this, opportunity to have people support you with it, but it's about bringing your own family, your own internal stakeholders and external stakeholders along with you as well, and being part of that journey and building that resilience into what you have to offer. So I hope that's answered your question, and I don't want to take up too much time so the others have a chance to add to that.
Thanks, Marina. And Jodie?
Exactly what Marina said. So I won't necessarily go over that, but the key points in relation to a good business plan is, understanding the vision for where you want to get to, coming to it with an open mind in the context of, let's have that, and communication, just getting it all out from what's in your head and then down on paper. Like it can be as simple or as complex. Business plans can be for anywhere from 1 page to 50 pages. It's what is appropriate for your business, and it's just getting something down to start with. If you don't have anything, it's just getting something down that says, where do you ultimately want to be and what actions do we want to take to get there, and working through some of the risks that you might face going forward.
Yes, thank you. And the next question I had was, well, what are the elements of a sound business plan? That's pretty well it. in summary. Would you like to add to that at all, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think it's about being selfish as a business. You know, it's your business, it's a plan for your business, so make it for your business, not for someone else.
It's self-focused.
Yeah, and be mindful of what audiences it might go to. Is it for your financier? Is it for your succession? Is it you know, for a lot of other reasons?
But it's for many, isn't it? The business plan's for many.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It certainly is. And I think it's, you know, being practical and being realistic. And that goes to what Jody just mentioned there before is one key element of a business plan is actually having actions, you know, actionable and measurable outcomes. You know, a business plan is just a doorstop if it doesn't have actions and you don't have and you don't have measurable outcomes based on those actions, and allocate those actions to people accordingly as well, because you know, people need to be responsible for, you know, for responsible and accountable, and it comes back to what, you know, Jody and Marina and I said right up front. It's a good business plan is also a fluid document, and it is reviewable. So you know, yeah, and I think, you know, we've all covered that, you know, moderately well. It doesn't have to be complex, but you don't want it to be super brief either, and you want it to be tailored for your business, practical, measurable, with actions, and then you review those actions to make sure that one, you've achieved them, but two, that people that have put their hand up to implement those actions have actually done it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Lloyd. Well, I only have one final question from you. And what I'd love to close with is a tip from each of you. So can I start with you, Lloyd? Or was that it?
Look, just get started. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Get it out of here and onto paper.
Yeah, just get started with it. Absolutely.
Okay. And Marina?
I'm going to say be proactive. Instead of being reactive and just letting things influence you, just be proactive. Following on from what Lloyd said, get started and be proactive about that, getting that plan there.
Thank you. Be proactive. And Jody?
I think we've all got the same kind of message. It's just start and communicate, and getting that communication down on paper. Okay.
All right. Thank you. And Kerry?
And to summarize the conversation, take the opportunity.
Yeah. Take the opportunity. I love it. Well, they're all fabulous tips for everyone to run with. And before we close, I just wanted to hand over to you, Kerry, just to summarize and finalize before we wrap it up.
Thanks, Sally. Look, just final closing comments. QFF is integral to this program. We've got a number of our members that are participating in it. Again, reinforcing that if you're a primary producer and you're not part of your industry association, you don't have to be to participate in this. Contact your industry association, give me a call or email at QFF, have a look at the website. But this is all about you and primary producers updating their business plans. We've got these wonderful advisors here to help you out. We've got a great team at QRider with the Drought Preparedness Scheme. Everyone here is to help you update your business plan, get it down on paper, and take this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, thanks again to all our panelists, Lloyd Russell, Marina Skinner, Jody Knowlton, and also Kerry. You've all been wonderful. And we do have, for those listening now, our next session, our next episode will be on Wednesday, the 25th of May. So it'll be the last Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m, same time as today. And of course, we're going to be talking with industry and our advisors in this next session will be in light of floods, drought, staff shortages, and supply chain woes. And basically what's top of the agenda at the moment. So we really look forward to having you join us again next month. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. And again, a big thanks to our panelists and our team behind the scenes. They've been wonderful getting this together for us today. So we'll see you next time. And if you've happened to have missed an episode or you can't get on to the next episode, we will be able to send out a link to you so you can access viewing at another time. So watch out for that link. Thanks again. I'm Sally Williams, and I'll see you in the next one.